This is the Launch Station, the only place you need to look for all things onboarding, implementation, and customer success. Tune in for insights from industry experts every week.
Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Launch Station. Every show, we speak to some of the top professionals and thought leaders in customer onboarding, professional services, and customer success, and pick their brains on a variety of topics to uncover useful tactics and knowledge from them. In this episode, we have two leaders joining us from Gainsight: Sridhar, who's VP of Customer Success, and Sudheer, who's Director of Professional Services. Sridhar is a veteran in the software tech space with over 2 decades of experience, working with the industry's big names like IBM and Microsoft. He transitioned from engineering leadership roles to running and building the customer success function at Gainsight, and then went on scaling it. Sudhir comes from a strong data background. He has a master's in data science and analytics, and he spent a decade and a half in tech consulting before joining Gainsight to lead their professional services function. We all know Gainsight is a pioneer in customer success. So today our topic is nailing implementations the Gainsight way. And we're going to get into details of how implementation and professional services have evolved at Gainsight, some of their best practices and key initiatives that have helped them over the years. So welcome to the show, Sridhar and Sudhir.
Thank you, Sri.
Thank you, Sri.
Thanks for having us here.
Awesome. So you two have spent a whole decade working together, first at Oakton and now at Gainsight. So how's the journey been working together for so many years? And do you have any observations about each other's working style that you can share with us?
That's a very nice question, Sri. Uh, when people change company, they also expect to get a better or good manager or a different manager. In Sudhir's case, I think that did not work out. Unfortunately, even though he changed his company, but the manager still remains the same. So I probably would leave it to Sudhir to add more color to it. But
I would just add one point that, I have a luxury of choosing my manager. So I chose my manager, wherever he goes there, I'll just follow him.
That's interesting. I guess it must feel great to have that sort of mutual trust and respect that takes you on a common journey together for so many years. Now we want to learn a little more about your individual journeys at Gainsight. Sridhar, can you share how the customer success function came into existence at Gainsight?
Sure, Sri. So we started off in 2016 trying to build the customer success function in India. So we have a full-blown customer success function at US already. So what we wanted to do is replicate our CS full-blown org structure back in India. And when we started in 2016, we had just the support team or the tech success team, what we call internally. To start with, about 11 people we started in 2016. And then over time, we slowly spanned out building, the professional services and the customer success teams from the existing team. So which essentially means our growth was fueled by, our growth was fueled by two-pronged approach. The first way of actually growing the team was to actually get people who are available, know the product, and have been working with Gainsight to cross-skill into a professional services role or into a customer success role. And then also add lateral hires, which means you actually recruit from the market and then train them on the product and then the function and then get them into the team. So the way we started with this 11-member team in 2016 is what in 4 years down the line, we now are about 100 plus team and with several different functions, starting with support, professional services, customer success, and customer success operations teams. Now, if you look back in 4 years, what was our learning in building these teams? I think when we started recruiting for customer success professionals back in 2016, although we posted requirement in Naukri, LinkedIn, and all other forums, there weren't any responses, or even for that matter, nobody even inquired what that role could be. So we had to do a little bit of, what you call back to the drawing board and figure it out that we probably have to recruit solutions engineers and then groom them into customer success professionals or solution or service professionals within Gainsight. And so we took that route back in 2016. Since then, we never had any stopping. So we kind of started getting people and then interviewing as solution engineers, explain to them about the customer success function as such, and then also talk to them about the CS role and the PS role, and then get them on board. So this is how we built the team in over last 4 years.
That must have been quite a lot of growth and momentum for the team, Sridhar. Sudheer, I know Gainsight has a few implementation partners as well. So where does your own professional services and solution architecture teams sort of fit into the picture?
Excellent. So we once the project is being awarded to the Gainsight, and then there is a team of solutions architect, technical architects, and solution engagement managers or strategic engagement managers that we call in. So these three teams sit together and identify who should do what and what is the plan of attack for this execution of the project and all. So strategic engagement manager in general terms is a typical project manager who looks for the entire project schedules, how to contact, how to connect with the customers, who should be put into the timeframes, exact timeframes, in contact with the customers in delivering the overall outcome of it. The solutions architects, they actually chip in and then talk to customers, gather the requirements and document everything in a spreadsheets. Right now, that's where the technical architects would come in place and understand these requirements, have a quick chat with the solutions architect team, and then understand the overall schedule, when to start, when to kick off the process, when to end this assignment. They'll have a rigorous schedules, understand each and every component of delivery. Then they start working on the configurations. That's where the technical architects come in, especially understanding at a discovery workshops what exactly the technicalities are there, and then coming to the major focus in the build area of the assignment.
That's interesting. Sudheer, I'm also curious about how you make your decisions around who should engage the customer. Should the partner be onboarding the customer? Should it be the internal team? How does this get decided?
Oh, we do mix and match. It depends upon urgency of a customer. It depends upon various factors, the availability of the teammates, internally and as well as with the partners. So sometimes, we have pile of customers adding up and then looking for an immediate onboarding. We will have to see who are all available for the customers. We segment our customers in such a way that, okay, as an enterprise customer, SMB customer, and so on. Once we segment these customers, we will have strategic advisory teams and all other teams who would be engaged in, having the specific talks with the customer. Now, when it comes to the partner engagement model, initially we look into the internal teams who would be completely focused onto the major customer projects, but there are agreements, okay, so-and-so person is not available, can we have partner in place? We will definitely have a major share the partners started working in. Sometimes they play the solutions architect role. If the solutions architect is not available from our end, or a technical architect is not available, they'll shift the roles onto the technical architects and then work as a technical architects. That's how it works today. So we have mix and match, not typically, okay, partners are only TAs or partners are only SAs. So it depends upon a situation that we play in.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So Sridhar and Sudheer, do your teams sort of handle customers globally from here?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So we do have customers again globally, as in like all geographies, starting from the US to EMEA and also Asia Pacific. So we have even customers from Japan as well. So this team actually handles the global customers. In addition to that, across our segmentation, like let's look at our segmentation as in like enterprise, mid-market, and SMB, our team is capable of working across segments as well.
Got it. So Sridhar, a few months back, I came across a social media post from Gainsight, and this was about how you're taking this new workshop-driven approach that aims to cut the go-live times in half. Curious to learn more about it and how it's worked out so far. And is this something that works for customers of all sizes?
Absolutely. So again, Like any company, Gainsight is very much keen on trying to improve itself time to time and also reinvent itself in terms of the processes and methodologies. As part of that, we have seen that several of our customers have actually reported that the platform as such is quite huge. Like if you look at the entire section of features that Gainsight offers, there are about 12 to 13 key features that Gainsight offers as a platform. So the challenge about picking up the top 3 or top 4 is actually a bigger challenge, and then going about the implementation. So what we have heard and what we have seen is that customers would really feel that most of the features are useful to them, and hence the time to value or the implementation time actually gets stretched. So we have actually tried to get a different approach to this. Like when we are talking about the requirements, we are also mapping those requirements to Gainsight features. So that's our first step. So let us say a customer has articulated during the sales phase that these are my requirements, like a 10 requirements. What we try to do is we try to map those into Gainsight features, and we also try to work with the customer to prioritize them in the order, and so that we can take the implementation phase by phase, so that in the very first phase we can go live and show them the value. So this is where interaction with the customer, trying to discuss, reprioritize, mapping to the Gainsight features, and then helping them choose the right set of feature set that is useful to their business. This is where the workshop actually comes in place. So we also have what we call an expert service. We call it as GSAS, which is an acronym for Gainsight Advisory Services. Typically, this is more oriented towards our enterprise segment, wherein you will see that enterprises would like an expert team because they have a data team, they have a CRM team, and they have a business team. So typically, they would like experts to come in, talk to various teams within their organization, and come and propose an implementation plan, which their team will review and provide timelines. So this is where the expert advisory services, are what we call as Gainsight advisory services, come into picture. And in so on and so forth, what we have tried to do is, using prioritization and using workshop, we are able to streamline the implementation process as such, and also cut down and bring the implementation to like 4 to 6 weeks.
Awesome. That sounds like a model that every company can copy and learn from. Here's a question on these workshops though. Do your customers need to come prepared for these workshops, and how do you measure their readiness levels to get their work done?
Awesome. Great question, Sri. So the way we do this is, these workshops are actually planned meetings. They're all calendared, and they also talk about the audience that is required, the skill sets that are required. Like I'll give you a practical example. Let's say I'm talking to a customer, and I would like in that first meeting their SFTC admin and their GS admin, Gainsight admin, who's going to administer their Gainsight instance, and also a person from the business team who is actually able to articulate the business need. So what we do, we may not need all 3 roles in the very first meeting. We might start with the business person, then slowly go to the SFDC admin to figure out what kind of data objects should we pull into Gainsight, or we should integrate with Gainsight. So those kind of discussions follow on. So what we try to do is, we kind of give a schedule wherein we call out what skill sets and what roles are required for those meetings, so that those meetings are actually successful and fruitful. So definitely these are all calendared with specific call outs to the resources or roles.
That's very insightful, Sridhar. Are there any other initiatives that come to mind that have actually helped you shorten the time to value for your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have also done several improvements using automation, Sri. So I will let Sudheer talk about the configuration wizard, which he has been actually part of that team that actually developed the configuration wizard. And then I also want to talk about 2 other methodologies. Gainsight itself offers what you call as success plans. So we can actually create a success plan with an objective. It's like a mini project plan, wherein you can monitor that success plan's progress within Gainsight itself to see how your implementation is going, what is the variance and how much of it is complete and how much to go. So that's one way which is available in-house to do this in Gainsight. We also use for probably for some customers smart sheets as well, where we can document all the requirements, monitor the progress, map that to Gainsight features, so that that's a living document between the customer and the Gainsight implementation team. So these are the two mechanisms. I would like Sudheer to talk about number one, the configuration wizard, and also a bit about Sightline.
Perfect. Sudheer, it would be great if you could sort of elaborate on what's this configuration wizard that your team built to help you and your customers. And it would also be great if you can share impact and any stats you have around what this has done for you.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for that point, Sri and Sridhar. So configuration wizard is what we call in recent times, we have evaluated multiple feedbacks, and then we came up with this kind of a wizard saying that, okay, how effectively that we can onboard our customers pretty quickly. Most of the times it takes of various capacities of a customer sizes that we have it takes from 3 weeks, 4 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, depends upon the size of a customer that we have in typical implementation world. But when we evaluated, we knew that we divided our questionnaires in certain way that, okay, these are the important things, and prioritize this in the first place, and prioritize. There are certain other configurations that can take place a bit late in the game. So we have evaluated our data inputs from various customers as well. And then we identified, yes, these are the immediate onboarding problems that we can handle it with the customers today. And then within the Gainsight, we identified the product areas that these areas can be onboarded quickly, and then the customers can acquaintance with the project and product pretty quickly. Based on that, we can move ahead and then takes remaining questions later in the game. So that was the initial story or work around that we analyzed. And then we came up with a configuration wizard. That wizard actually guides you. Okay, what is the step one? You need to get the customers list first. And what is the next step? You need to get your contacts. What is the next step? So we have a certain processes that we identified, a kind of a checklist in a different world that we can call it. But we have automated to reduce the value, like to reduce the implementation time or a cycle, and we give the complete time to value to the customers. So it initially, as I mentioned, like a different size of a customer, so 3 to 4 weeks if it takes to onboard a customer, it has cut down significantly, like 60 to 70% in today's time. So we have onboarded like 40 to 50 customers by now when we started configuration wizard on that. Apart from this, when we've analyzed, there are external data coming into the Gainsight. Okay, what sort of data that it is, do we see any common patterns, common trends in people really needing that data? So when we looked at, there are certain integrations that customers really wants to do with the Gainsight, and in talks with the product, in talks with the engineering teams, we identified a few areas of external data integration. So when I say external data, say cases is one of the data that we have sitting outside of a Gainsight, which is a Zendesk, Jira, or some other place, right? So we ingest the data in a specific format so that the Gainsight can understand and give a better insights to a customer. So this is a typical exercise which actually takes 1 week of time to understand the data and then import it into Gainsight, do a lot of activities, transformations, data transformations, and give it to a right way where customer could understand. Not just cases, but we do have usage data where this data again sits outside of their systems, right? The CRM systems. So we take the data, consume the data, transform it, and then use it for a specific need. It takes definitely a week's time. So we templatized few data points, and then we have right now, we have in the product called Sightline integration. We take, okay, you're getting data from this particular source. Okay, these are the typical formats that we are looking at. So basic platform that is already ready. Like you can just simply deploy. You could deploy, like it used to take 4 to 5 days of deployment and validation of all of those assets in a Gainsight, but it's now few hours that we could deploy and onboard customers pretty quickly on those areas.
That's a lot of good ideas in there, Sridhar and Sudhir. So moving to the next question, how do you sort of keep all the stakeholders on the customer side aligned and motivated throughout a project? For example, even if you take Gainsight implementation, I can imagine that sometimes the customer success head at your customer end is fully motivated and aligned and wants to get this up and running ASAP, but there may be engineering and product leaders who have other items on their priority list, and for them to get the integrations done, to push the data into your system, etc. How do you ensure that that alignment happens, and what do you do when it isn't there yet?
Sure. I think the role around strategic engagement manager that Sudhir spoke about earlier, Sri, is the one that actually is the linking pin between Gainsight's implementation team and the customer. So the strategic engagement manager, as the name suggests, he's more on building the strategy so that the executives are aligned and the implementation teams actually work towards the goal what is set forward by the executives. So the strategic engagement manager lays out a plan, maybe a success plan or maybe a Microsoft project plan, to share with the customer and their team so that they are aware of the details of the requirements that are being delivered and who needs to do what. So generally, we have seen challenges around, like for example, the CRM, let's say Salesforce is the CRM. There is an admin team that is outside the CS department. So then there are also things that we have to do across departments or across functions, if you will, within the organization. So this is where the strategic engagement manager is responsible and accountable for setting those priorities and also guiding them through the process.
What about customer experience at Gainsight? Can you share some best practices employed around providing a consistent and delightful sort of 5-star experience to all of your customers?
A great question, Sri. I think the promise of customer success itself has two parts. So a great customer success is a result of, number one, delivering great outcomes to the customers. And the second thing is also, while delivering those outcomes, we also deliver a great experience to them, which essentially means that the customers not only get their outcomes met, but the journey is also something that they actually cherish. So this is where the promise of customer success lies. Now, in that light, when we are actually engaging with customers, we always try to understand not just from a value delivered perspective, but also from the experience delivered perspective as well. Like we kind of start with, when we start the sales process, we kind of interview people on the customer side to see what the requirements are. But at the end of the implementation or via a midpoint at the phase 1 or phase 2 also, we would want to do an NPS to see what the customer sentiment is. This is a kind of lagging indicator. A leading indicator that we definitely want to see during our implementation is, we would definitely talk to the CX level people or the VP level folks that are involved to understand as to what are the nuances and what are their expectations, so that we document all of it and then we deliver. Many a times what so happens is that the requirements are documented at a very high level, the nuances or the details are missing. So this is where the workshop actually comes into place to flush out all the detail to the level like I'm able to map a data source that actually flows, that gets the data into Gainsight and then report via a report or a dashboard. So this is, to that detail we kind of plan out things, and this makes a great experience and also keep the customers engaged. And towards the end of the implementation, like I mentioned, we always take an NPS survey, and then we also provide that feedback. If we get any good feedback, we kind of see how they can become references for us. Or if we get adverse feedback, we kind of work with them to see what has gone wrong, so that we can take corrective action to set that in place.
Awesome, Sridhar. And Sudhir, do you have any techniques to assess the readiness of a customer before a project comes to the professional services team? I mean, do you have some sort of a measure or a readiness score for this?
Perfect. So IT readiness in the sense, when customers come to Gainsight, when they really wanted to understand what exactly the Gainsight is, we do have pre-sales team where they would understand way before that the professional services team jumps in, right? They actually in contact with the customers and understand what is their setup, how it is structured today. Because the next successive actions are, sell the Gainsight, get them onboarded, and implement Gainsight, successively. So for that, this is a kind of an IT readiness. We understand, okay, what type of a data that they have, what type of, how many systems that they have in, how these systems are integrated, how can they can, how these systems can talk to each other. So we understand this bit early from a pre-sales perspective, and then once the customer purchases Gainsight, again professional services team, the sales team and all goes ahead and then understands again their IT readiness. So we have a structured list of questions like what is their CRM, how does they pump in data to Gainsight, which way that they can actually structure in the all that. So we have a template based data questionnaires that we post to our customers, and then customers would respond a way before than the actual stuff. And then we evaluate all of that. We estimate a quality time for the project. Once we know that this data question is answered, then we estimate, yes, okay, they have these many systems, they have, this is how the data lies in, this is where the data sits on. So we understand each of their data components and their IT systems, and so as their deployment processes and everything, their deployment cycles. Not every customer deploys, they have their own cycles. Like in some customers, they say that whenever you really wanted to put your project on, our Salesforce systems, the deployment system is only ready on Wednesdays. If you refresh, if you looking for a refresh, the refresh cycles is only happens on Wednesday. So we got to factor in our project estimates accordingly to the customer needs. So we check each and every component there, when their deployment cycles happens, when they are expecting a launch to be happened, how their systems internally discussing each other and all, connecting each other. So all of these we factor in, come up with an estimation, then get executed with the product.
Great, that's very useful. We're now moving to the next part of our show, which is questions from our community. Pre-Flight is a community for customer onboarding, implementation, and customer success professionals. We are also going to take questions from our audience on LinkedIn and Twitter. So here's the first question. What are some of the common mistakes teams make during the initial days of setting up their professional services and implementation teams at their organizations?
So the first one that we learned, Sri, was around nailing the handoffs. So the sales team had already interacted and gathered a set of requirements for which the product is being purchased or the contract is being signed. So I think what is very, very essential, and we probably said this right now and over last 3-4 years, we are doing it very smoothly, is handoff between the sales team and the onboarding or the implementation team, which is within the professional services. Now we have developed a handoff process, including not just a checklist, but including a meeting so that you can actively discuss those. And then the customer is actually saved from repeating himself or herself. They don't have to come and repeat all the requirements that they have stated to sales team when the implementation starts, because the sales and the professional services teams are internally talking, and they're also have passed on their documented requirements to the professional services team. That is where they will start, and they will start elaborating those. So the customer actually feels like there is a smooth handoff between the sales folks that they spoke to and the onboarding or the implementation team that they're speaking to now. That's the one important thing we learned on the way. Probably over last 2 to 3 years, we have got handle on it. The second thing I would like to talk about is the implementation time itself. So the implementation time is stretched owing to the enormous capability that the platform has to offer as so broad. So I think what we have tried and over time realized is that prioritization and call for a 4 to 6 week launch as phase one, and get all your act together to show value to the customer within the first 4 to 6 weeks. That's the second thing that we have learned over time.
Okay. Is there any ROI maths that you have in place, that helps you with the right prioritization to be able to say, hey, in 6 weeks, this is how much ROI we need to be able to show?
Yeah, so we have done some exercise around that, Sri, and then probably Sudhir, can you talk about our quick launch? We have come up with packages basing on our experience, what typically customers ask, and what needs to be done from the Gainsight side. So we have categorized all of our learning into packages, and then we actually talk to our customers in terms of value via the packages. So Sudhir, you might want to talk about those packages.
Yeah. So in the journey, we talked about strategic engagement managers, SCAs and TAs. This is a professional services team, right? We also have another team called professional services sales team, so which actually identifies what type of customers we have. Of course, we do segment the customers in a way that they also identify, okay, uh, how many data points that the customer of a mid segment has, or SMB has, or an enterprise customer has. What are their data inputs? How many files that they're gonna give in? How much time the overall project it takes? What is the post-project activity? What are the post-project activities that we do? Pre-project activities that we do. So based on all of these points, we came up with a certain packages. Quick start launch, quick adoption. So we have named it in a various things that we came up with the different packages. Each package has its own way of deploying mechanisms, which is 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks or more than 6 weeks kind of it. So we divided our packages based on a customer needs. Again, yes, the sales services people go and talk to a customer, understand their use cases. Yes, they identify, yes, this is a perfect package for the customers. Now go ahead and deploy this package. So we get an information saying that, yes, you get 2 success plans, you get 20 reports, you get 10 data sources that need to be integrated, or 10 data files that need to be integrated. So we have a pre-packaged idea that these are the things which we will definitely stick to. If it changes, again, it changes the overall package and the costing of the project.
That's interesting. So here's the next question from the community. Where does the implementation team's role end, and where does the customer success team's role begin at Gainsight?
Yeah, so I think if you look at the overall structure of customer success, from a life cycle perspective, the first team that gets engaged after the sales team is the onboarding or the implementation team. And then once go live, they hand off to the customer success team. And along with customer success team, the tech success, which is the support team, kicks in. So any break fixes, technical questions, they log a ticket, and then it goes to the tech success or the customer support team. And on a periodic basis, like on a cadence of fortnight or weekly, depending on what kind of segmentation we are in and what's convenient for the customer and how many features that we are actually planning to implement, the CSMs schedule a cadence calls with the customer, and that's part of the core customer success till end of life cycle. And in this life cycle, the most critical are the inflection points that we look for, or we talk about and we monitor very carefully, are the time of renewals, where 30 days, 60 days, 90 days before the renewal, we actually have CTAs, or call to actions, specific action plans that we execute so that the customer gets value and is also driving the adoption in the right direction.
Got it. We'll move to the next question. So does your company tie any component of the payment or subscription fee to adoption of your product? I know this isn't totally in control of the SaaS company, but is this something that Gainsight follows?
Yes, so I think the way we sell the package is like the product is like we have a base package, which typically people have to buy the base package. And then there are add-ons of it. Like I can take a concrete example where predominantly people start with Gainsight basic package. And upon their first renewal or 6 months into their implementation, they might want to automate their journeys for their SMB customers using Journey Orchestrator, which is a great feature from Gainsight. So they'll probably have to pay an additional fee for that feature to be enabled, because that's not part of the base package. So this is how the expansion, or depending on the customer need, they will buy several components that are not in the base package.
Got it. I understand that all of it's tied to adoption, because only when they're using those features do those features need to be enabled, and only then do they end up paying for it.
Yes, true
Makes
to the
sense.
promise of SaaS.
Now we're moving to the final part of the show, which is our rapid fire questions. Just answer based on what comes to your mind immediately. I'll start with Sridhar first. So Sridhar, if you weren't a customer success leader, what would you have been?
I would be a Java architect. I have programmed in Java for 15 years of my life, starting from JDK 1.1. I have started, and I have programmed in Java till JDK 1.8. So definitely any day up for a Java architect.
Sudheer, what about you?
Yeah, I would be somewhere, swimming through in the data world. As I mentioned, I came from a typical data background, implementing data warehouse projects and business experience. Now, the term is slightly changed onto the data analytics world. So I would be, swimming somewhere with the data world, maybe in the data science side, or maybe in the artificial intelligence, or maybe in the analytics, somewhere that.
Got it. What's one thing that keeps you motivated?
To me, I think the biggest happiness working at Gainsight, or probably last 5 years, has been Success for All and Golden Rule. I am really fascinated by the vision statement of Gainsight. The vision statement for Gainsight reads as, you can win in business by being human first. And so far in my life, I used to think that if you have to win in business, you have to be cutthroat. You have to be, probably very shrewd to make it work. But having come to Gainsight over the last 5 years, I have realized that you can definitely win in business by being human first, by following these rules of Success for All and Golden Rule. And that gives a lot of energy to me to understand and to look at life in a different perspective altogether.
And what about you, Sudhir?
I think, I keep challenging myself on every aspect, be it work, be it on a personal life as well. So I need more challenges, you get the kick when you overcome those challenges and then identify the next level of challenges. I keep myself motivated, read books, and then understand entrepreneurial journeys of various folks across India or outside of India, study them, understand them, what they do, how they really are growing in their careers. So I keep, understanding and learning myself on all these, aspects.
What's been the lockdown's best gift for you?
I would say, this is a common thing for everybody. I'm spending my time with my kids. And moreover, when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of artwork with a paper and all that, which I never teach to my kids. I have a boy and girl. So I started teaching all of that at home rather than just giving a phone or a TV for them to watch through all the day. I started teaching a few things in my native language, where they're not completely that fond of reading through and all. So that is something like spending most of my time with my kids, playing with them is my favorite time, or a gift. Awesome. That I would say. Yeah.
And Sridhar, what about yours?
Yeah, so like Sudhir said, for all of us, I think I have spent in the last 1 year as much time I have spent with my kids in last 2 decades. So, I mean, I'm not overstating, but that's the amount of time I'm spending with kids at home, being at home. The second thing I have realized is that we have, the moment the quarantine started, we actually unpacked all those board games that we used to play when we were young, as still in our house. And we kind of fascinated to see how logical some of these things are, like, at those times, how these games were created. And the kids have actually enjoyed playing those games, because you sit all around, and then you play that game. And it's got physical activity. It has got some, what I call motor skills. It's not necessarily that it's so, what do you call, straightforward. Some of these things you have to realize the trick of the game over time. So I think the second aspect that I have realized, the goodness of the board games or the physical games that we used to play. That's the second thing that so fascinating about the lockdown.
Awesome. And now to make things a little more interesting, we're going to have both of you ask questions of each other. So Sridhar, your turn first. What would you like to ask Sudhir?
Nice. So probably, Sudhir, if you were to look back your 5 years at Gainsight, and you had a chance to do something differently than what you have come through in the last 5 years, what would that be?
Within the Gainsight, you said, right?
Yes, the 5 years at Gainsight.
First of all, I'm pretty much happy with the Gainsight. And then if I were to look into a different way from a Gainsight, that since I'm into the data world, I'm much more connected on analytics part of the product. If there is anything that I could just jump in onto the product management and then see what are the best things which are coming out there in the market, and then give suggestions, and then come up with those product areas and ideas, and take the product to the next level in the journey. So I would be part of that. Definitely, I'll stick to the product team. But the journey wise, I've been part of all the delivery services and implementation teams. So my heart definitely stays with an implementation team, how effectively that we can deliver a project from a product perspective. Yeah.
And Sudhir, now it's your turn to ask Sridhar.
Okay, that's a good thing. I never asked before, but let me try. Sridhar, what is the reason for you to, sticking to the Gainsight?
Yeah, so I have been like, to me, it has been 5 years, but every year, the discussion around year objectives is totally different. You feel like you're in a new organization every year. I'll tell you this is possible because you are aware of this philosophy or the book that Reid Hoffman has written about the alliance, right? So truly that the alliance discussion happens with the executives every year. Like for example, when I was with Allison, reporting into Allison, this discussion happens in February. Similarly, now that discussion is happening with Ashwin on the alliance. So it is like coming to a new company. The questions are like, what would you like to do this year to create a material impact, let's say in this objective or in this area? And that is the way I think the executives at Gainsight actually take up the job. And that contract is for 1 year. And end of the year, we kind of renegotiate and we are getting into a new contract. There's nothing physical about it as a no written contract, but that is the way we engage, the alliance philosophy, if you have to say. So even though it is 5 years, it is 5 different years and 5 different journeys. You would have seen the way the team has scaled. So the focus actually happens to be in one area or the other. So you're looking at something different than what you actually looked at in last year.
Thanks, Sridhar and Sudhir. Very beautifully answered by both of you. And now the last question of the show. This is to Sridhar. What's your advice for customer success leaders out there?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, you're in the right field. And the reason why I say this is, if you look at LinkedIn's FY20 top 20 jobs, customer success happens to be the top 6th one. And the other thing is that there is, as per LinkedIn survey, the requirement is about 1.3 lakh CSM professionals, whereas there are 37 or 39,000 CSMs available. So you're like, even if you expand the scope by 3 times, you're still not meeting the demand. So that's the field that you are in. So this is, I'm talking about one side of the equation, which is on the demand supply, the field. Then the advice to any upcoming or fresh person who's entering into CS as a kind of, fresh entry into CS field, please There are numerous blogs from Gainsight. Please read through them in your available time. There are books, and it would be nice if you can actually attend Pulse, which is an annual conference conducted by Gainsight, which is building the community around customer success. So if you are aspiring customer success professional, look at the literature, look at the books, the blogs, the books, and the community. I'm sure you will be a rock star, and this field is definitely promising.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Sridhar and Sudhir. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Sri, for hosting us.
Thank you, Sri. It's a pleasure talking to you all.
And folks, thanks for tuning in. If you've missed our previous episodes, subscribe to our podcast. If you aren't part of our pre-flight community, do join us to get more exclusive content on all things related to onboarding, implementation, and customer success. Thank you.